this is a lesson for the church, arguments from silence about the Bible. We should wait on the archaeology and trust what God has said first. That's what I always say to the church layman. Trust what God has said. The archaeology may or may not bear that out. We'll find out. But it's hard work, and it needs to be done. It needs to be done meticulously, as you have done.
We found inside this tiny dipper juglet 2 seal impressions, and then we began sifting around it, and we found several more seal impressions around that as well. And those seal impressions, of course, are extremely important. We call them bullae. They're extremely important. They're about the size of your thumbnail, but they are seal impressions, or the personal signature, if you will, of the individuals that placed this on a document and then sent it by courier to another city. They broke that seal off. And so these seal impressions probably were kept in this little juglet as a proof of receipt, and we have that evidence. And of course, they mention people's names on them, as you've had on a previous program recently in Jerusalem. Hezekiah, the king's name, was found on a seal impression. Just 10 feet away from that seal impression in Jerusalem was found a seal impression that may be Isaiah, the prophet. Just right in that context. So these seal impressions are extremely important to give us some ideas about this history. And in Isaiah chapter 37, we have a verse that mentions all of these individuals we've just talked about. It says, when King Hezekiah heard it, that is, that Sennacherib was coming against the city, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and entered the house of the Lord. Then he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, with Shebna the scribe and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. So we have 4 people mentioned here that are all extremely important to this period of history and this event. We know from Jerusalem that both Hezekiah's seal impression has been found, and now Isaiah's seal impression is found. We know from previous excavations that we also have evidence for Shebna outside of the Bible, the scribe mentioned here. But the seal impression, 2 of the seal impressions that we found impressed with the same seal, is actually the seal impression of Eliakim. And so for the first time in history, we have Eliakim, who is also mentioned in this passage, who was head over the household or the palace. Sometimes he's called the overseer of the palace. He is the individual, probably second in command, or at least a very important official in the territory of Judah, and he's sending a message to Lachish, and we have these seal impressions now kept there, and we found those after 2,700 years. So very, very exciting discovery that happened in 2014.